What's up everybody, my name is Chris Reed and today we are continuing our tutorial series A to Z in Reason Studios. In this video we're going to be talking about organization. Organizing in Reason is very important to make sure that you have good workflow so you can get your creativity out of there. You don't want to be stifled by trying to find a sound or an instrument and looking for it for time and time again. So the best thing that you can do is organize, and I'm going to give you guys a few tips on how you can organize inside of Reason. Let's go ahead and jump inside Reason so we can check out the track, so we can check out organization. So I'm here inside of Reason where we're going to be checking out some organization tips. Let's first take a listen to the track that we've created. Alright, so the first tip I want to tell you guys is about actually viewing the sequencer. So if you hold control and you use your scroll wheel, you can actually widen and shorten. You can zoom in and out of your track. And that's important so that you can actually get a look at what is happening inside of Reason. So the first thing that we're going to notice right here is color coordination. So by default, whenever you load up a new instrument or a new sound, Reason will assign a color to it. So every time you see a different color, it's because, well, it's a different kind of instrument. So the first tip that I have for you is to organize by color. The first way you can organize by color is simply by organizing by section of the song. So we can highlight our clips and then go to clip color. And let's say we want to change that to this blue-green. So now I know this blue-green is here and that can represent my intro. So we'll change this next section of the song to plum, and that will represent the chorus part of our song. The remainder part of our track would be our verse, so we could give that a different color as well by highlighting the section, going to clip color, and then changing this color to a different color, maybe this turquoise color here. Now we've done a little bit of organizing. We can see the different parts in the sequencer. We can see that there is a blue section, a plum section, and a turquoise section. And we understand that each of these separate colors belong to a separate group. Another way that you can organize in the sequencer is by using the blocks feature. So you just go to options and enable blocks. And then with your pencil tool, you can draw in a block here at the top. So let's say we draw in this block right here that says block 6, and then we'll actually go into block mode and we'll change this block and we'll call this intro. And then of course we can right click and we can change the color as well. And we can change the color to something nice and bright so we can see it. When we come back here, we can see this section here is in orange, and that lets us know that it is our intro. We can continue to do the same for the rest of the block. So we'll have an intro section, a chorus section, and a verse section. We're using block mode and using these blocks to create sections for labels of our beat. We also can highlight all of the MIDI clips and copy them and put them into the block. And then that way, anytime we draw out the block, it'll actually draw out those clips and play the music that are corresponding to those clips. Of course, it doesn't stop there. You can also add labels to each of these blocks. So maybe we have variation 1 and we have an actual label that's labeled there like that. So now let's add a label to the clips. Now how you decide to add your label is totally up to you, but you right click, add labels to clips, and this will be organ chord progression. So now we have a label there, and as I said before, if you zoom in, then we can actually go down here and we can see more of that label. Okay, one thing that we could do, we could give labels to all of these clips, right? So now all of these clips can have intro applied to them. So now we know that these specific clips are for the intro. So I like to use the redrum, and anytime you're using a drum sequencer or you're using an NNXT or something that has a lot of samples, your MIDI notes can end up in the same clip. And of course we can leave it like that if you want, or you can do a little bit more organization and you can separate each of those drum sounds into their own clips. Let's double click the clip, then we will double click the drum sound, and then we will right click on one of the notes and hit move selected notes to new lane. So now we have moved all of these notes to a brand new lane, and now we can go and add our label, and this is kick drum. This specific clip is a kick drum. And if we wanted to differentiate that, we could add some color to that as well. So now we know that that is the kick drum section. If you're doing this while you're creating the beat and while you're structuring out the beat, it really does give you a better flow and organization. Or you can simply do all your creativity first and then go back and do the organizing. That way, whenever you pull up the file, it's just easier for you to find what you're looking for. If you're going to mix or if you're going to change something, it's easier for you to find it and see it and locate it and have a great workflow. Now that these drum sounds have been given their own clips and their own note lanes, we actually can go ahead and name the lane as well. So if we want, we come over here to this lane and we can rename this lane hi-hats, kicks, open hi-hat. So hopefully you can see now that we've done a little organization inside of our redrum tracks. We can see how we can split things up, give different colors, give different labels, and that will just help us in our organization. So far, we've done a global sequencer organization using blocks to create labels in order so we can see and view the parts of our song more easily. We've used blocks in order to create sections of our songs. We've used colors in order to see sections of our songs. And we've added labels to note lanes and clips. Now let's move into the rack so we can see how we can organize our rack a little bit better. To pull up your rack, you just need to press F6 on your keyboard and then it will flip over to your rack. Now, when I'm organizing in my rack or when I'm looking at my rack, typically what I want to do is just have my rack up. So I don't want to have the mixer and the browser up. I just want to look at the rack. As a default, as you add in instruments inside of Reason, it's pretty much just going to put them into this one long vertical rack. But with newer versions of Reason, you can actually use the rack horizontally as well. So let's say, for example, we can organize by instrument. So let's first collapse all of these instruments just so that we can get a better view of them. So right off the bat, the first thing that I will want to do is anything that there's a lot of that appears that I can move around, I'm going to move those. So for example, there's this Vox, this stack of Vox. What we can do is go ahead and click on one of them, hold shift to highlight the rest of them, and then click and drag until we see this symbol appear right here on the rack. And that lets us know it's actually going to build a second rack for us. So now we don't have the one long vertical rack, we have two racks that are side by side. And we actually can continue this process. So for example, if I also now want to go by instrument, like I said before, well, I see that we have this mimic and we have another mimic down here. So I'm going to click on one and then I'm going to hold control, click on the other one and drag over to a third rack. And now we have a third rack with just our mimic sampler. We have a lot of ID8s in this track. So let's go ahead and grab all those ID8s. We'll click on one, hold control as we add the next, and then click and drag to yet again as we drag over our screen. We can click and drag and drop it over and create another rack. Now we've spread our rack out both vertically and horizontally, which just gives us more room and ability to see the different instruments that we have at a moment's glance. So instead of scrolling and scrolling and scrolling until we find the instrument that we're looking for, we know all of our audio tracks are on our second rack. So we can uncollapse these now and have a look inside of those instruments. But we know, and look, they're all labeled blue. We know that all of our audio tracks that we were using are on that second rack. We can go over to our next rack and we can say, okay, anything that we did with a mimic, any kind of sound that we did with the mimic instrument, we know it's going to be on that rack. IDA, any kind of IDA sound is going to be on this last rack. We can continue with that kind of organization if we so please. We can just continue to create racks horizontally. And then in order to move around between those racks, all you need to do is go to this wood area and click and drag when you see the hand appear. When your cursor turns from an arrow to a hand, click and then you can drag across, and you can drag across horizontally and vertically. You can also use your scroll wheel on your mouse as you go up and down. And if you hold shift, you can scroll across Reason as well. So holding shift will allow you to scroll horizontally. Letting go of shift will allow you to scroll vertically. Of course, we also could organize by type of sound, and that's typically what I like to do. I organize like my drums on one rack. Any drums or percussion, put them on one rack. Anything that would be considered keys or pianos, I could put that on another rack. Anything that would be considered orchestral or synths, all the synths can go on one rack. And anything that's, or you can separate it by, you know, where they sit in the frequencies, right? You can separate your higher level frequency instruments on one rack, and then have all your sub and bassy instruments on a different rack. These are just different ideas that you can use for organization inside of Reason. Sometimes you have instruments and things that get created and they're not actually doing anything at all. So, you know, you just need to delete those things that are not being used. Reason also has an option to save and optimize, and that will pretty much clear anything that's in like a clipboard or anything that's temporary files. It'll clear those out of the file so that your file is not as large, especially if there are sounds in there that you are not using, unassigned sounds and samples and things of that nature. I really like the way that this looks, having all these ID8s together, because it just, you know, I can see very clearly what these instruments are, and if I need to tweak something, I can tweak something. So Reason makes it easy for you to find instruments. Also, in case you didn't know, if you click on an instrument in a sequencer, you can go to your rack and then your instrument will be right there, the main focus on your rack. It will appear. So let's go down to these Vox. So we'll go to this Vox and we'll go to our rack, and we see this right here is the instrument that we clicked over here, Vox 3 copy, and we can go there and we can see Vox 3 copy is right there. To collapse a part of the mixer that you're not using or don't need to focus on, you just double click that section and it will close that section off. And you can do that all the way down to the fader. So now we have our mixer completely collapsed. So nothing is viewable and we can't see anything in our mixer. But whatever we want to focus on, that's what we can focus on. So if we want to focus on our faders and faders alone, then now we can focus on our faders. Just double clicking faders uncollapses it. And if we want to see everything, then of course we can just simply double click and show everything. Now there's another way that you can do that. Here's the show hide mode down in this corner. As you click these off, they disappear. And as you click them on, they reappear. And what I want to do is go through this beat, and now I want to name and organize. So I'll go to the mixer and I'll solo. Let's get to a part of the song that has a lot of the instruments. And we'll click on this clip and press P. And what that will do is that will begin to play the song, and it will create a loop for that clip. So we see that this section here is our Rhodes. So we'll go ahead and name that Rhodes. Let's go ahead and press 1. Here's our 808. And this is already named E bass 1, so we'll leave it that. Sounds like that is percussion, so we'll name that perk. This one has already been named piano. Great. So that tells me this is the it puts the entire label of the instrument, right? But I just need to know that this is a guitar. And then if I want, I can put elect guitar. So just giving some names and organization to our mixer, that helps as well. Now I did want to show you guys something like, for example, all of the drum sounds have been put into one mixer. And that's fine. For mixing and for organization, you can actually split those drum sounds, and there's an easy way to do it. So we'll click on rack, and that will send us to our redrum rack, and then we can flip the rack. We'll go to drum channel 1, and we'll right click right here on this section here that says channel 1 left, and we'll right click on it and route to new mix channel. And what we're going to do is we're just going to keep doing that over and over and over and over and over again until we have everything on its own mix channel, except for 6, because there's no instrument in 6. And we'll go ahead and map everything out. All these drums have their own mix channel. And what we could do if we wanted, we could actually route that to a new output bus, and then we could call this drums. You can actually move around the positioning of these mixer channels. You can actually move them. So for example, let's take all of these Vox channels and let's move them to the top of the mix channel. Since vocals typically sit on top of the rest of the beat, right? But really it could just be because you want to just move it however you want to move it. That's totally perfectly fine. And of course, we also can do colors as well. So we'll take these drums, for example, and we can highlight them by clicking the first one and holding shift and clicking the last one. And then we can go to channel color and we can create a channel color for them as well. So once we change the color of those channels, that actually will be changed inside of the sequencer, and that will be changed inside of the rack. So that gives us some continuity with our organization. So we got Rhodes, piano, organ, boom. We have 808 and electric bass. How often does that happen that you have both in your production? I don't know, but in case you do, we have those together. Boom. We have 2 guitars in here. We have 2 trumpets in here, and then we have a plethora of drum sounds. And so now we can really see a lot easier what is actually happening inside of our song. This video was all about organization. We organized our rack, mixer, and sequencer windows. If you guys like this video, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you really liked it, share it with somebody so they can get the information as well. We have many more videos coming up in our A to Z series, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of those Reason Studios tutorials. Again, my name is Chris Reed. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.